Hello, folks. How many people have heard me speak before? Okay, well, first of all, thank you for coming back. And is that too loud? Am I too close here? So if you've seen me speak, you know that this is way taking me out of my game to have to stand at a podium. But Mariah bailed me out here on the thumb drive, and so I have to stay here and use the advanced keys because of a corruption in my USB. So it's very different for me to stand behind a podium, as you know. Okay, so that said, welcome. My name is Jimmy Pollard. For those of you who don't know me, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a social worker. I started out as a special education teacher and special ed teachers, and found myself working in a nursing home, basically doing special ed stuff for younger nursing home residents. And I encountered a young woman with Huntington's disease who was referred to our nursing home in June of 1986. So in the intervening 32 years, I've spent a lot of time with folks with HD as they've walked their road. Several of them, of the hundreds who have been in the homes I've been in, probably about 10 of them, I spent 12, 13, 14, or 15 years, depending who it was, with them in the home, and got a unique opportunity, at least 5 days a week, 9 to 5, so not family, to observe how HD over time unfolded in them. So that's really all my credential, if you will. I am, bear with me here. Here's the disclaimer on HDSA, and here is mine. I have no financial things beyond I am a full-time consultant for the CHDI Foundation. And that, stick with me. Okay. Whoops. This is our problem. So if you're computer fans, this is on autoplay. So my slides want to keep advancing even though I want to stay on them. So anyway, I hate when people have to apologize for the media, and now it's me. But anyway, so it just allowed me to see how HD affected folks over the years. And if you think of doctors at presentations like these, the medical world kind of conceptualizes Huntington's disease as a trio or a triad of clinical disorders. Movement, and they might be off, each have different lingo for it, but essentially it's movement disorder, mood disorder, and cognitive disorder. So listening to, as I began to meet people in the nursing home and spend time with them over the years, I came to realize that even though the world kind of focused on the movement disorder, and before it was Huntington's disease, as you all know, it was Huntington's chorea, focus on the movement. And if anybody here is old enough, certainly I wouldn't expect you to identify yourself in public if you do, but some of you maybe remember when Huntington's now disease was known as one of the several movement disorders that was covered by the name St. Vitus dance. Hence, oh yeah, you heard that because you're too young to remember that. In school, in history books. So, but anyway, St. Vitus dance, emphasis on the movement. But as I spent time with them and heard their stories, it became clear to me that, first of all, they may have been totally unaware, neurologically, with anosognosia of their movements. But their movements really weren't the problem. It wasn't what they complained about. I never met anybody wake up in the morning and say, oh, man, I'm having a bad chorea day today. It's just, you don't. But I began to see how the cognitive disorder, or let's strike cognitive, as my high school Latin teacher, Father Moriarty, used to say, you'll be able to use this someday, Jim. So we'll strike the word cognitive and replace it with the word thinking, because in Latin, cogno is I know, I think. So thinking challenges, or changes in how folks with HD think. That was the real one that was problematic. It was problematic as people tried to do their job. It was problematic in their relationships. It was very difficult. So I became kind of fascinated with the changes in thinking and what it's like to think with Huntington's disease. If you have heard me before, and I know as you raised your hand, several did, I've spent the last bunch of years talking about what it might be like to think with Huntington's disease. And I know many of you here actually have Huntington's disease, so it's somewhat presumptuous for me to sit here and talk about that. So I would beg your indulgence for that. That the changes in thinking actually have feeling to them. And when I say feeling, I don't mean loss or grief or any of that kind of psychological stuff. What I mean is, if you know that old thing of rub your belly and tap your head at the same time, and I see nobody actually doing that as I'm doing that, okay? Because unlike you, for some of us, it's hard. And it induces, until you get it together, it induces kind of a, in your head, feeling of like a little bit of confusion and having to concentrate and consciously work at it to get it down. And then everybody can be like you. If you didn't see her, boom, boom, right out the gate. So that's kind of what I've been talking about for a long time. These have feelings, and those feelings are no different to those of us without HD, but HD magnifies them to a progressively increasing degree. So this topic, I was somewhat reluctant to talk about this because this is more of a, you guys should speak up with me and share what you think of this more than my traditional kind of fire and brimstone tirades. So please do speak up and tell me your experiences, if I'm missing the mark, or things that might be worth sharing with everybody else here. So it's called, first advance, without making a mistake, it's called No Surprises. And no surprises means, and I'm really, okay, I can't tell what you're reading. Okay, so almost not everybody, this notion of no surprises is about how people, as their cognitive challenges get increasingly difficult, how they find comfort, power, strength in routine. And since the word routine has such negative implications, like if you go on Google and search routine quotes about routine, it'll basically have all these nice artsy-fartsy things about routine that essentially say when life becomes routine, it's worthless and give up and jump off a bridge. I mean, it's like such a negative thing of routine. So I tried to avoid the word routine because it has those negative implications and replace it with the word predictability. That as people's challenges thinking become increasingly difficult, it's so much easier to get through the day or the moment just knowing what's coming next. So predictability. Not everybody with HD, walking their HD road, has this problem, but most people do at some point in their HD for a certain period of time. Hence, if you can't predict what's coming next, you're surprised. And people with HD, I would say kind of typically, if you want to paint them with a broad brush, and I know many of you here, people with HD hate surprises. And I don't think it surprises anybody who loves or cares for anybody with HD. That should come as no surprise. There's so many. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Now, it's hard to give, I'm usually trying to work really hard at trying to give good, powerful examples. This topic, though, it's harder to do that. So that's why I'm kind of hoping somebody will talk about how their loved one has had trouble with surprises. So I focused on the cognitive challenges of HD, as I've come to do, how they might feel, I told you that. Trying to get us, those of us without HD, to really get inside the head of somebody with HD. Again, not the emotional stuff, but the neurologic cognitive thinking things, and try to see it from their point of view. Because if we do, I believe that until we hear tomorrow and at the booths out here, until science does something about HD, the Marjorie Guthrie, do something about, until we do something, right now, all we can do is these little changes in our homes and our lives to hopefully make somebody's HD road just a little bit easier. And I am totally convinced that you can do that in your homes. And again, I'm not preaching at you because I'm a paid HD guy and you are family members. But there are some things we can do that will make the road a little bit easier. By trying to accommodate these challenges in thinking. I also want to say that I know how difficult this is. I know HD in general, it's kind of stupid to say how difficult it is. I want to focus, because it's so self-evident, but I want to focus on what's really difficult is some of the things to accommodate these changes to make people's roads easier are really, really hard to do. And as hard as it is, it's important. So some of you may recall that I often talk about how people think slower. Not necessarily slow, but it gets slower as you go. And that when people speak, and I know some of you remember this example, for, you know, if you say, hey, what's your daughter's name? And you say, what's your daughter's name? And the person walking their HD road will say, Andrea. But if you're like me, and a lot of us in this room, we are wired to, in those moments of silence, while they're trying to answer Andrea, in those moments of silence, people like me like to say, how old is she? How many kids you got? Would I know her if I met her? And setting that ticker back is really, really annoying to people who think slower. So I've preached about how those of us who have difficulty waiting and feel compelled, for whatever reason we were scourged with this, to fill silence with words, we've got to learn to wait for them to respond and zip it until then, if we can. And I know how difficult it is. At the same time, where you, taking care of your loved ones, we want you to wait. Typically, I think that folks with HD themselves, they can't wait. I would ask you to fill in the blank. When somebody with HD wants something, they want it now. So, and no matter where I go in the world, and I ask that question, everybody will answer it exactly the same way with no other prompting. Neuropsychologists refer to that as the cognitive phenotype, but it's that predictable. But at the same time where I want loved ones to, and myself, to wait for people to speak, since the folks with HD can't wait, what do? When they want something, exactly, within reason, hurry up. Help them as soon as you can. So let's get this straight. They can't, they think slower, so you wait for them to respond, but themselves, they can't wait, so I want you to hurry up. So let me get this straight. You telling me, hurry up and wait? Exactly. And as you know, especially if you've been in military service, the phrase, hurry up and wait, kind of represents the absurdity of everything in the military or in life in general. Hurry up and wait, and how difficult it is to do. And I always say that for us carers, to do hurry up, wait at the same time feels like that. Day in, day out, for decades. Some of you for multiple, and I don't mean 2, generations of being a caregiver. And I pause for silent effect because that's really hard to do. We don't come wired to do that. It's that hard to do. But if you're the person with HD, what does it feel like for you? It feels like this. Same thing. What's taken so long? Jesus, I didn't even get to answer my daughter's name, and you're pushing me back. And no matter what side of the conversation, this is what you get. That said, one more, I think. So to hurry up and wait, as I like to say, day in, day out, over the years, over the decades, over the generations, to do that is a profound act of love. Again, pause for effect, because that's what it is. When I say I know it's hard to do, it's really hard to do. And it takes it out of the domain of work. It puts it in the domain of love, clearly. Interestingly enough, this is serious stuff. It's difficult to do, it's hard work. And again, for emphasis, it is an act of love. There are many horrible things about Huntington's disease, but let me add one more to your list. And it is that of all the things, most of the things that we can do to accommodate these changes in thinking are really, as we say in Boston area where I'm from, really wicked simple, man, to do. Like, wait, slow down, do one thing at a time, hurry up. Those are simple things. But in the world we live in, for anybody to tell you to slow down, what planet are you from? We're Americans, man. Many in this room, and it's getting worse, many of us in this room remember before the word multitasking was invented, right? And now it's like a common word. So some of the only things we can do are really simple. That's kind of good news. But the other horrible thing to add to your list is the irony that to do those simple things in the world we live is almost impossible. Waiting, you're kidding me. All that's going on in my life, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to roast in the oven, I got to pick the kids up, I got, all of this kind of stuff. It's really, really hard to do. Which brings us back to surprises. And so the irony is, the horrible thing is, the irony of it's simple, but it's so hard to do. Which brings us back to surprises. So think of it from this whole notion of surprises, from the point of view of the person who's living with HD. So first of all, processing information slows down. Some of it's at such a pace, it's indistinguishable, just like aging, by the way. Aging being a progressively degenerative neurologic disease, I might add, sorry for the news, everybody, but it's the way it is. But aging, the decline in cognition in aging is imperceptible too. It happens so slow. So you're processing everything slower. Organizing your information, meaning thinking of answers to questions and what you're going to do today and holding those thoughts of what you're going to be doing the weekend. That gets more difficult. And you have to work at thinking at those things. And any time you do anything, and you have to be aware and work at it. If it was something that you unconsciously did before and you took for granted, your brain just did the work, you never thought about it, brings on a feeling that's of exhaustion, being tired, fatiguing. It's draining, I guess. And if you want to know how short a person's fuse is, meet them when they are tired. Your fuse just shortens. It's a human thing, man. So just remember all those things. At every moment, somebody along the HD road, just to think, that's kind of where they're coming from or what they're experiencing. And while you're experiencing that all around you, maybe the focus is on your movement disorder for good reason in this case, because People may be afraid of you falling or crashing into the wall or smacking your elbow or whatever. We live in this world, so people, even though you're thinking slower, may be rushing you, hurrying you up. Maybe they're not waiting for the ticker, and they think that because it takes you this long, you didn't understand the question or whatever, so they just figured, no, you don't want to, and they move on. There are changes, big and small, in people's days that from time to time surprise them. Damn it. Because they're struggling with that and they're counting on something to happen, that predictability thing, and it doesn't, it takes them right out of their game, it surprises them, and they hate surprises. You with me on this? Yeah. You do? Okay. So, given that, if you have HD, all that's going on, it's really much easier if you know what's coming next in your day. That's comforting, just knowing what's coming next, because it's so hard to think. It's so easy to get your brain overwhelmed. It's really comforting and reassuring to know what's coming next, and you like it predictable. You like it in the same order every day. Those of us, I'm 66 years old, I like things in my day at 66 more orderly than I did at 56. And way more orderly than I was 26 or 36. I don't know why that is. I'm kind of a loose spirit. But man, at 66, I like knowing where the toothpaste is. I like knowing where the remote is. I like being reassured that my daughter didn't take my cell phone charger. That kind of stuff. I want the stuff to be there. I want to know that when I do something, there's going to be that payoff right out of the gate. So because of these cognitive changes, people prefer that predictability. It's so much easier to know what's coming next without thinking about it, or certainly at least not being surprised. There was this guy, his name's Leo Kanner, in 1943, a psychologist, long before psychology was as big as it is we know it today. But he once used the phrase to describe a disease, an anxiously obsessive desire to maintain sameness. And I read that, and the more challenged you get thinking with HD, I think that's a pretty good description of it, how you want to have things in your day predictable. So actually, Kanner was describing autism in that, not Huntington's disease. But I like that phrase. I think that's it. People are obsessed sometimes with sameness, with order and routine, even in this crazy day-to-day world we live in. You'll hear psychologists refer to it as mental, or you see the brochures with the cognitive symptoms that'll often say mental inflexibility. That's what we're talking about. In a sense, we all like it. No matter how old we are, we like predictability in our world. And I'm going to give you two examples, if I do this right. You go to visit somebody, or you just drop by, whatever, and you knock on the door. Nobody comes to the door. Right. You say, who's there? Oh, but nobody comes to the door. Then you might go, nobody comes to the door. Then you might. That, in psychology, Google it, man, is called extinction. Actually, it's called an extinction burst. So when something that we've been rewarded for, to use the behavior analytic lingo, when we've been consistently rewarded for something, and we expect it, like we knock on the door, it's going to open, and we're going to see whoever we want to see, and it doesn't happen, we do it again, and we do it at higher frequencies and higher forces, like that. It's called an extinction burst. Extinction bursts, so frequency and force go up, and then you realize, or whatever, nobody's there, and then it goes way down and you walk away. My point is, in this case, that we expect things, and when we don't get them, HD or no HD, it changes our behavior. We do things differently, predictable. Not some of us, almost all of us, because it's the way, like I say, the way we come wired. Next example, a little bit different, but in the same domain. Coke machine. You put your money in the Coke machine and hit the button, and nothing happens, right? So there's a series of things we do, many of us do next, and I think you know where we're headed with this. So the first one is probably, and again, human behavior is totally unique. It's more unique than our physical appearances. But the first thing you might do is do the old coin return, money return thing, right? Or now it's a button. The extinction burst again. Da, 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 da. But there's another phenomenon. You do that, you don't get it. Then what do? Kick the Coke machine. Assault the Coke machine. Right? Does that mean that you are an aggressive, violent person by nature? No. It means you come hardwired for, Google this one too, extinction-induced aggression. It's like a normal thing in how we behave. I only point this out because in ourselves, HD and no HD, we can see how we react when something doesn't happen that we expected. That's just saying. So there is a neurology to it. This is from the Physician's Guide that's out available with the HDSA publications. Just quickly, since the and because I'm not a neuroanatomy guy, but since the caudate is unable to regulate properly, people with HD need a regulated environment that provides daily structure and routine. And this is the key thing to me, because this is about them, upon which they can depend. And I'll skip the other paragraph, but then the last one is, so a person with HD relies on external sources to structure the day and make decisions. So it's not just how we behave, and behavior analysis is a neurology to it. And if you love someone with HD, you will try to take care of them well and try to accommodate all the changes they have been thinking. But the biggest one is to avoid surprises, because on a good day, all of us it's gonna change our behavior. But people, if they're taken out of the game and are surprised to something, they're gonna have a hard time. So our goal as home designers, if you will, designers of your family's day-to-day life, have to make an effort to increase predictability as much as possible. And predictability is simply, what can we do to reassure people about what's going to come next? You can pretty much say, as a slogan, people with HD or people with a whole lot of other neurologic diseases prefer predictability. And predictability, I would like to say, is not a schedule. If you're sitting there saying, gee, I can't do whatever it is, I can't have dinner every night at 7 o'clock, of course you can't. So when we say routine, it's not a schedule tied to time. It's not rigid. Again, routine has such a bad name. It's about predictability. So we're not rigid with this. And in no way does it constrain your family life. We're not asking you to do that. We're just asking you to work at trying to enhance predictability. This is my logo I asked my son to draw. Because in this case, in this case, that love, because it's so difficult to do, love is no surprises. And this is one of my themes in my career, is getting you all who have skin in the game, I don't, to understand and explicitly state that what you do is love. As difficult as it is, you're there because you love people. So enhancing predictability is an act of love too. Now, I said before that routine has a bad reputation. We're not going to cover that. but we're going to use this example. So I'm not really just thinking about the day-to-day operation in your home in terms of increasing predictability in the day. I want to drill down and just look at one event, like trying to help somebody take a shower, and how within helping somebody to take a shower, which you can all be caregivers and still not be in helping somebody with a shower, but we all take showers, so we're going to use that as an example to relate to. So I want to just go over these things about taking a shower, and I put here on the slide, from the person who needs the help's point of view. So you can think of, okay, you're going to help this person with slower thinking and all the other cognitive challenges. This person, before you begin this, wants you to know some things about them. Like, man, there's no special way to bathe me just because I have HD. There's not. I hate somebody having to bathe me, right? Nope. Right? You don't want to be dependent on somebody else to take a shower. Just so you'll know, man, I don't like this any more than you do having to do it. It's really less pleasant when I need anybody to help me. But there are some things that you might want to know that might help us do this easier. Because if it's easier for you, who's helping me, or me who's having it done, we both win if you do these kind of things. Also be aware, my caregiver, caretaker, carer, husband, wife, son, daughter, brother, sister, also know that there are some things that will annoy me and drive me crazy. Let's try to avoid those. So, first, you should also know, caregiver, from person with HD, that I find it often takes a few minutes to respond to questions and instructions, and it takes me longer to answer. That in this tight space of a shower stall, in a bathroom that's small, with water flowing all around and splashing, and I'm here naked, it can get real confusing for me really quickly. So let's together work on this and try to do it comfortably. It's easier for both of us if you tell me what's going. Okay, I gotta slow down here. It's easier for you, for both of us rather, if you tell me what's coming next, how much longer we're going to be in here doing this, give me a heads up if there's any surprises, and use the same order every time you shower me. And if I don't respond quickly, just wait for me. That's what I want you to do. So, we'll start at the bottom. You know what that picture's from the movie? Right? Psycho. Now, is she frightened by what she's facing or anything that's going on with her? No. She's freaking out about what's going on around her. Right? Just remember that. So, a person who you're trying to help, caregiver, you should know, for example, so I want to drill down on how complicated this simple thing is. They say, I hate the shower, meaning I might have fallen in here once. So I had the last person that helped me, could be a family person or a nurse's aide. They were no help at all. It was horrible. And remember, I hate surprises. What's a surprise in the shower? Splashing water in the face. Right? You can splash water in your own face, and it's never a surprise. When somebody else splashes water in your face, it's almost always a surprise. That person may hate waiting. So you better be damn sure you have the towel, soap, and whatever. And that a surprise could be, hold on 1 second, I got to go get a towel. Right? That's a surprise. They want this to end and get over quickly. So they always want to know how much longer is it going to take, which we'll get to. And I like it done in the same way, in the same order every time. Now, one of the things that I learned in a nursing home is you can train staff how to give people showers, help people shower, and they're never going to do it the same way. Some people do wash their face and then their arms and then their legs and then their crotch or whatever. Other people do it their other way. Not many people do it the same way. It's weird. It's really important if you're that person who's being showered, getting a shower every day from a helper who's a stranger, who does it differently every day. Now, the good news is there are less caregivers in homes. So you can do it your way, idiosyncratically, naturally, on your own at any time. I mean, all the time. But it's really important that you know that, because you don't want to surprise people. And sometimes a surprise may be as simple as, okay, after we shampoo and wash your face, now let me do your legs, when you're expecting you're going to do your armpits. That's a surprise. So, let's drill down again, continue. I'm hopping on this, man, I admit it. As you approach a shower, you kind of think of it as a baseball batter, going to the plate. I was thinking of this when Bill Johnston was using sports analogies in his talk today. So the batter comes to the plate, no matter who they are, or an experienced star, plants his feet in the batting box, takes his bat, usually checks his distance from the plate, and only then does he look up for the pitch. So he pays attention. Damn well he should, for what they're paying him. You know, but he does, at his highest level of performance, he still takes time to make sure everything is in order before he even looks up at the pitcher. It's no different in taking a shower, which I'm pointing out because what I'm really saying is, this is how you enhance predictability. So when you begin, even though you might have done this with your husband, wife, sister, brother, whatever, mama, dad, 1,000 times, it's still worth paying attention to this, just like that batter every time. So let's take all the time we need. Is everything within reach? Do we have, just like that batter, a wide base of support and other positional things for falls? Are we comfortable, blah, 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 blah. Only then do then we look up for the pitch, which is turning on the water. So when you think of enhancing predictability, it's not simply the order of things in your household thing. It's how you specifically care and the details of care for people. Before I continue, you with me still? This boring? It's not as dynamic and charming as I usually am. Okay, so that said, what do you say? What do you say? Oh man. Okay, what do you say? What? Was that a surprise? That was a surprise. Let me reassure my brother Norb, it won't happen again, man. And thank you for being a good sport, I might add. We always have fun with together. Anyway, when you think of, so you do this all the time, but think of what you say as you're helping somebody. Is the help in the same order? Like I said, first let's shampoo your hair, tilt your head back, I'll rinse your hair. Now let's wash your face. Let's get in your ears. Here, let me get under your arms. Okay, let me wash your crotch. Lean over there, I'll get your butt. Let's wash your legs. All of that kind of stuff. You're sitting in a chair, lift your leg, whatever. Those are the words that you say, the instructions, in a certain order. So hold that thought for 1 second, that an orderly, same thing, same words you say all the time. And then think of what you do or what you say to reassure somebody that everything's going to be okay and make this easy. And think of things you would say like, hey, I'll be back in 5 minutes, it's almost time to shower. Heads up on what's coming. And then you say, as you approach them, okay, I got the towels, the soap, and the shampoo. And then you do the thing of getting everybody in position, and you say, okay, we're safe, let's go. And then when I said people want to be reassured, enhancing predictability of how long is this going to take, damn it, when you're halfway through, you say, oh, we're halfway there. That's simple. Let me lather up this leg. And then, oh, we finished. It's all over, man. We finished. Let's get dry. That kind of stuff. So there are the words of instruction, and there are the words of just kind of reassurance. So think of those things you say. This is not a script. If you're a caregiver and are doing a shower, you're doing this stuff naturally. All I'm saying is pay a higher degree of attention to the order and what the words are that you're saying. So what we're doing here is basically now in this list, we're taking the list of things, instructions, and the list of reassurances and putting them together. So the script now would be, this would be a script. Reassurance, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Reassurance, okay, we got the towels. Reassurance, okay, we're safe, let's go. Instruction, let's shampoo your hair. Reassurance, here comes the splash. Instruction, now let's wash your face. Let's get your ears under your arms. Reassurance, good, we're halfway done. We know how much longer it's going to take, where we are. And then reassurance, whew, finished, we're dry. So, kind of a closing message from the person with HD to the one who's helping them would be, I don't want to complicate a simple thing like Jimmy Pollard's up here trying to tell you. I don't, because it is simple and people do it all the time. But I do want you to know that we can make this even easier by doing some simple things. And it will become second nature if you give it a shot. You may help me shower hundreds of times along my HD road. If that's the case, doing something that often merits close inspection. My job here is to help you help me, carer, but maybe it's worth looking at this stuff to enhance predictability. So this is kind of my example of when we say predictability, it's not just routines and tying it to time and schedule. It's like looking at everything we do, because you can even get better at it that way. So I'm going to, what time we got here? Okay. Let me stop now, because I didn't plan on lecturing this. I'm going much slower than I thought, taking up more time. But what kind of problems do you face in people not wanting surprises or really wanting things to be the same all the time? Nobody?
Well, actually, some of what you, shower in particular, because I'm often doing things differently, and I said to my husband, her morning planning is different than my morning planning, but now I know that it's really the predictability. And in the shower, yeah, it's like raise one arm, those kinds of things, and then, so that helps a lot from that perspective.
Oh, one second. We got a microphone so everybody can hear you. It's coming up behind you.
Thank you. I need help with my meals, and when my mom's home, she cuts it up, but when my dad's home, he doesn't really cut it up, and he'll give me something like yogurt instead, which is a surprise, obviously.
Thank you for your personal testimony. I got a witness. Other people, and other examples.
I actually had a question. What if somebody actually is, you haven't established the routine yet, and they are like either refusing to do something or, are afraid? And I'm kind of thinking of cognitive more for, dementia related. My father has dementia, but he's like refusing to have the caretakers at his place like allow him to do his nails. Any guidance for how you break into a routine?
Yes, oops. Yes, I do, but it's not that helpful. That's a tough. That's a tough one. I bet you many people here know what you're talking about, and the guidance is that routines are sequences. So I stopped using these slides. Every mother knows the power of routine because they learn the bedtime thing of dinner, feed the kid, bathe them, put them to bed, right? And it doesn't come naturally to some moms as it does others, but they all figure it out kind of thing. I point that out because routines, they're sequences, they're not tied to, and they kind of evolve naturally. So when you have nothing in place, it's really hard to engineer a start. That said, unless he's simply just not doing much at all, maybe just watching TV all the time, all that kind of stuff, it really is hard. So others say, if misery loves company, I'm here for you. It is hard, but if there's ever an event that he does, like let's say he shocks you someday, he surprises you and says, I'm going to go out in the back deck and sit in the sun. Jump on that. Tomorrow, offer, or go out on the back deck yourself or whatever. So I don't have any solutions, but I do know it's just like whatever change it is, seize on it and try to play around with it. I also have great value in, like, if you're asking that question, I believe if anybody can figure it out, you will figure it out. But some of the stuff, you do have to understand, it's like those mums, every mom in the room figuring it out on their own. And they don't say bathing, I give him a bath at 7 o'clock and I put him to bed at 20 past, feed him at 20 past 7, whatever. It's always just the sequence, not the time. So that's a tough one. In the behavior analysis world, there's an expression: you can't consecrate no behavior. So you got to wait for something and hope for it. And again, we're talking about could be years, months. Here's my non-helpful answer.
I just have a statement. As soon as you said that, it reminded me of my father. My father was in a nursing home for almost 12 years. And while he was in there, one of the first and second times I went up to visit him, because he was all the way up in Ohio and I'm in Florida. And the first time I went in there, he looked like a mountain man. He had hair everywhere, his nails were a mess, and I was very angry. And I was fussing at the nursing staff and everything, and they're like, he won't let us touch him. He will not, he had all this extra help. He had hospice in there, and he would not let them touch him. So finally, thank God, there was a nurse that he really, was bonding with, and she would convince him, like once a month, come on, Robert, let's get a haircut. So she would sit in there with him and help him get his nails clipped and all that kind of stuff. But you got to kind of pick your battles, and that's, yes. And if you can get somebody, and it's not always going to be a family member, because when I would talk to him about it, it was whatever. But the nursing staff was massively helpful there, and they were, as long as you can find someone that would come in, and it didn't even matter if it was a bad haircut, any haircut would be good, because, his eyebrows were long, and he wouldn't let them touch them at all. But, he bonded really tightly with one of the nurses, and she would come in and say, all right, Robert, it's time. And he would, let somebody else come in and cut his hair. But just pick your battles, because that's not one that, I know it grosses me out completely, but, just pick your battles.
Let me go back to your question. I found this as I was thinking about it. When nothing's happening, so I kind of, whoops. Oh. I used to help people find routines when they said they didn't have anything. This is in another context. And so people say, no, you can't find any routine. My home is crazy place. HD or no HD, there are a lot of crazy place houses, you know. When my kids were younger, I was in a crazy place house. But the bottom line is there are routines, even within crazy houses, crazy homes, not asylums or psychiatric hospitals. So we used to start with, do you get the mail every day? When does the mail come, 2 o'clock? Does somebody check the mail? Oh, yeah, that's pretty much, we check it within an hour or whatever. Do you watch, what network news do you watch? Or do you at all? Those kind of things. So those things are there often. Do you get up and have a cup of coffee right away? Or do you get up and have a cigarette right away? Or do you get up and go to the refrigerator, whatever? There are some things that even in the most disordered stuff are happening regularly, and you have to find them. Which brings me back to what you're saying. How do you create something out of nothing? One of them is to do that kind of stuff and talk about it through the day. So it's kind of like preview and review, as they say. The old, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So through the day, you say, oh, another beautiful day today, Charlie, and time to have a cup of coffee. And after I have a cup of coffee, you know, I'll check the mail, or we'll put the radio on for the weather, or that kind of stuff. And just continually talk about that. Not being stilted. I mean, when you tell people, it's like, oh, I can't, I'm just not my nature. Nah, you can. You can make it easy, you know. Well, it's time for coffee, time to make the donuts, as we would say in Boston. That kind of stuff. And I think that helps catch when people do something, maybe for the first time in months, and helps you get it, you know, run with the ball or try to run with the ball. What else here on that? I want to skip that. There's the preview and review thing. You should do this until it comes naturally. So it's like, okay, Joe, you're all dressed and shaved. Now we'll have breakfast, then we'll go shopping. We'll have lunch and we'll be back on any given day. Just to state that helps people know what's coming next. Even if they know it, even if they can predict it, just knowing, just for you to explicitly state it is helpful. We may never know that and be reassured that it worked, but I think we have to bet that it does for the little effort. I also just want to point out, because Tina mentioned nursing homes. The predictability in nursing homes is way, way, way more for all the problems a lot of people have, but the environments are way, way more predictable than homes. In a nursing home, you know you're going to have what you're going to have 7 days ahead of time, not that the resident will care, but you know that it's coming at a certain time every day, all 21 meals of the week. You know where they're going to be served, who's serving them, and at what time. How often today, on Friday night, can you predict in your lives where you're going to eat the next 21 meals? You can't. So those are really predictable. In the day, there is 3 shifts of nursing care that are predictable things of people coming and going. There's 9 to 5 staff, they're coming and going, that kind of stuff. And I point this out for a couple of reasons. One is, it shows a lot of times, I would say as a nursing home person who's admitted a lot of people to homes who live with HD, most often families think the adjustment period will be far worse than it actually is. That people actually adjust really quickly, and all the apprehension about the move doesn't come to pass. And I think this is one of the reasons that homes by nature aren't as predictable, and then they get into a nursing home, and in a couple of days, everything has some sameness to it. And it's really much easier for them to do. I don't know if anybody else has had that happen, but I think that's part of it. So there's a schedule. This come and go, lunch served, med passes, medication is administered, the same thing. Nurses pushing med carts up and down the corridor kind of thing. That's always rigidly timed. The one thing I want to say, the one more thing I want to say, because I am running out of time, is this, or ask you this. A lot of times, if you're taking care of somebody who has all these cognitive challenges, and you know that there's a surprise coming, maybe they can't do something they wanted to do, or you've got to take them to the doctor, or you've got a plumber coming into the house, Curtis, and you got to make the bathroom unavailable for a couple of hours. When do you, and you know it's going to upset your husband, whatever, when do you tell them? People will often say, do I give them plenty of notice? Do I tell them at the last minute and hope for the best, knowing that this is going to surprise them and things ain't going to go good? Or somewhere in between, you know? I wondered what you all thought about that. Could you all hear her? Oh, we need her for the video, right? So this is being live streamed. So could you repeat that again?
What would work for me is taking me out of the house. That way I can't get upset over it. And if I go to the library, I'm there for hours and always happy.
Simple answer, really. Does anybody know what I'm asking, though, in terms of wonder? Oops, I'm sorry.
I think my wife would like a lot of notice because she likes her routine. And it's like if we're going to work out the next day, I'll tell her, well, we're working out tomorrow morning. If I spring it on to her that next morning, she'll look at me and she'll be upset. So I think she likes the notice.
Here and here.
I really appreciate your breakdown of the verbiage and how to have an interactive conversation with someone with HD. I know with my dad who's in a care center, the bathing and ADLs, they can become very, very difficult. I'm fortunate enough that I'm a hairstylist, so I can usually convince him to cut his hair. But something I have to do, like when I'm trimming his nails, is not approach it as we're cutting your fingernails. It's let me see your hand, and then we do one at a time. And after I do one, I say, okay, 9 more, and we do like a countdown. And he's more satisfied with reaching one pinky, out, and then the ring finger because he gets result, as opposed to me trying to fight him to do all 10 fingers at the same time.
That is a really good example. And there's 9 layers of predictability in that hand, all at the same time. Nancy? While we're getting the microphone to Nancy, one more thing when you said about the words of assurance and everything, I left out one. If you saw the thing, I had the little rubber ducky down in the corner thing. I don't want to ever people to think it's so rigid that you can't have your private moments with your loved one. So the rubber ducky reminds me of this woman who used to say every time she bathed her husband, there was a rubber ducky on the corner of the tub, and she would squeeze it 3 times and say, okay, we're done, rubber ducky time. So even though you look at this stuff, really examine it closely and change things to accommodate it, you never want to take the love of the rubber ducky squeeze out of it either. Nancy.
Well, that was one of the things I wanted to ask about, the little phrase, consistent personal bits that you had in one of the pages.
That's what I was
toward the
referring
end.
to.
So keep it to a minimum, but make it consistent. Like you're not going to talk
Yes.
about something that happened yesterday as conversation. You just stick to the work at hand.
Yeah.
But the consistent little things. You were talking about how long do you wait before you tell someone something that might produce anxiety. I'm guessing that it depends on the individual, because some people will perseverate and get all upset for days if they know that somebody's coming or something's going to happen different, and others will be better if you just tell them right before? Is that probably?
I would say so.
Yeah.
You know, you're the expert on your wife. You know what I mean? And like I have here, you have to trust your instincts. And sometimes you'll be in a dilemma of whether to do it early or late. But
Yeah.
yeah. But if you don't know, trust your instincts. Be as confident as you are in your stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, but it is clearly different. That's why I bring it up as a topic. It's specific to people. Anything else? Lance?
Gentleman in our support group always talks about trying to be able to get more of this kind of stuff done with his wife whenever there's a Cubs game on, just because that was such a routine for her all the years before HD, all the years of her early stage, mid stage. She just loved Cubs games, and so when there's a game on and she can sit and watch it, you know, he can do a lot more other stuff, or he can have other caregivers come in for those couple hours. So he's got enough Cubs games taped that he can have a Cubs game in January if he needs to. And she doesn't know the difference.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm glad you dropped that little fact in there for us. But by the way, one of the other things about routine, and I think of the sports thing, it's like two things. Do you want your home life, if you have people with cognitive challenges, do you want your home life to be a finely choreographed ballet or a hockey game, right? One where everything is known, hockey game, man, where the damn things are going totally unknown and guys are smashing one another and going at 110 miles an hour, whatever. Or, so which would you like? You'd like it to be the ballet, but life is a hockey game. But if you have cognitive challenges, I forget who told me this, and you might have heard this speaker too. So you're never going to get a ballet. So maybe all you want to hope for is a baseball game, meaning 9 innings, 3 strikes, if you're watching TV, 4 minutes of ads. The routine nature of baseball, especially televised baseball, is really something to work for in your home. Anyway, other questions, comments? Is this relevant to more people than are speaking up, by the way? No? One more, yeah.
This is about the person who says, when it's not the time to shower, I want to shower now. Or I want my fingernails cut now that the food is on the table. Or I want you to cut my toenails, which is totally different from setting the routine and everything. So that's the hurry up and wait category. Just hurry up and cut the toenails and then have dinner.
I only have an opinion on that, and I don't even know what it is. I got to think about that.
Because it does happen. I mean,
It does happen.
Someone will say,
Absolutely.
I want it now.
Right. Totally
and-
unreasonable.
Yeah.
Totally unreasonable.
And you love them and you want to do it
Right.
now.
Right. And Brother Curtis back there last night, he used the word uncompromising. He uncompromisingly wants his toenails cut right now. That kind of stuff. I don't know. Again, I would trust, it's like you and your wife. I would trust your instincts. Whether to, and ask yourself the old question, is this the hill I want to die on? Is this the one I want to have a battle about? Is this the one I want to have a power struggle about?
I wonder what nursing homes can do in a situation like that, where the resident really wants a bath now.
Right.
And-
I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on the nurse aide who encounters that first, and then who they're nursing, the LPN or whatever above them, and by the time it gets up to see. So interesting. Again, if you ask the question, you already are on to why it's important and what the answer might be. One sec. There we go.
I've worked in a nursing home before, and it really depends on the person who's the CNA. Like, if there's someone who's always on the move, it would be hard to have them do it. But if the person is extremely compassionate and can put themselves in like your shoes and how you're feeling, then that's the person who would do it. Someone
Hey.
who's capable of loving.
There you go. Any other comments? Terry?
One of the things I try to remember is that I'm not teaching my husband what to do anymore. You know, so if you have a 7-year-old and that same situation happens, which I recall that they did as a parent, you're trying to train that 7-year-old that, no, this is how we're going to do it, and you're willing to endure some of those battles that you have because you're training so that in the future you don't have that. I don't think we do that with HD. And if you can defer on that thing with, I want it done now, and it's not going to be a battle and it's not going to get ugly, then you should defer. But if you know it's going to be ugly, then why? I mean, most of us aren't cooking steak and lobster for supper every night. So if I eat it now or in 10 minutes, the food's going to taste the same. So it's better to defer the battles and not get into the huge fight, and you don't have to do a great job. You don't have to do them all. You can do some and say, can we eat now and then we'll come back to this? Just a comment.
So going from like a model paradigm or whatever of instructing to accommodating or judging whether this is the hill you want to die on kind of thing. Any other parting comments? So, in summary, you can only do what you can only do. And if you live in a crazy, scheduled, busy home, just try to do what you can. Start small, and if you fail, just try again. It's not the end of the world. It's like anything else. Again, to repeat what I said before, this is examining our routine to enhance predictability is hard work, it is difficult, but it is really important and can impact people's lives. But again, pausing for effect, to do it is an act of love because it's that difficult. My logo again, in this case, no surprises is love, love is no surprises. Right now, the current most effective treatment for Huntington's disease, there's no cure for Huntington's disease. The most important thing is understanding. And I know there's a lot, when we talk about awareness, what we want the general public to understand. One of my wishes is that we can see the awareness, how the day-to-day interactions, because of the cognitive challenges that people bring, are how that's one of the primary challenge, or the primary challenge of living with Huntington's disease, and we need to be aware of that and start looking more closely at some of these things. That poster is from the Irish Huntington's Association, by the way. So I'm going to skip that, and those of you who've seen me before know that I always close with the same poem that was written by a guy named Leon Joffe in South Africa. His wife had Huntington's disease, I believe both now deceased. And he wrote this about his wife, Pitta, and I think it captures one of the things I'm trying to say and get you to realize that you live. And it is this: you surprise me every day. Your fighting spirit, your vision, and its ability to draw me forward with you. Your loveliness, even as you plunge through the hardcore of the future. You achieve what others dare not even dream about. You know no barriers to the universe. You are my dreamer, my leader. With you, I am greater than myself. With you, my perpetual fear, carried like a rock, is turned to water to drain away through the tunnel of your laughter and courage. This day we face together another challenge. I hear too distant to do more than love you. I will myself to weakness that my strength may add to yours. I will myself to passivity, that your actions may shame and humble all like me. Know then how much I admire you, and much more than that, love you. If you want the PowerPoints of these slides, I have a sign-up sheet here. I'd be glad to send them to you. I also have these packages, which I will give you out. Nancy, could you grab that? It's actually over there on that chair. And make sure everybody gets one. You'll see they're wrapped in packages. They have the Harley logo card that's diddled with. It has the stages of Huntington's, the unofficial, non-clinical one. Then if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I self-published a book. There's an ordering information card there. And my contact information is this in this Ramones logo that I diddled with on the back of that. In the packet, you'll get one of these Cure HD stickers, kind of European-style discreet sticker for your car. Then we have a Huntington Stux for the Trump era. Doesn't matter what tribe you're from politically, it stands on its own. And then there is a wristband because I don't expect you to wear the wristbands. But wristbands are like buttons. Nobody throws them away. They end up in your junk drawer. So I'd like these wristbands to end up in your junk drawer, and every time you open it, you remember what I was telling you. People prefer predictability. And that said, I'm here as an employee of CHDI Foundation, as I said. I'm grateful for them to let me do this. And that's all, folks. Thank you for coming out. I'm really grateful.